Inspector Keith Riddick, FDLE assigned 2 agents to work on this case, and they did an excellent job. Keith was always there, picking up the phone, whether he was on vacation, traveling between investigations, whatever it might be. Keith always picked up the phone. He knew exactly where to find things. As you might imagine, this file was thousands of pages. So thank you, Inspector Riddick. And finally, Gilbert King. So when FDLE turned over their file to our office on a thumb drive, there were each different person they spoke to. Each record was broken down into a folder, and there was a folder for Gilbert King. And I realized after speaking with them that they flew up there to New York and they interviewed him and they got his documents. And as you know, his work on this case has really brought a lot of attention and helped us get here. Well, I called him because he was listed as a witness in this file. And we started talking pretty regularly. He probably found out pretty quickly that I was pretty needy. And rather than going through these documents each time, I could call upon him with his photographic memory and he could pull something out for me. And that was great because I couldn't have done it without him. In fact, we at one point, when he came down for something else, he and I drove over to Umatilla, and based on old FBI reports and some other data, we figured out, we believe, within pretty close proximity to where Sheriff McCall shot Irvin and Shepard. So we actually, we went there, and then we found the old warehouse where Lake County used to store all the old evidence. So anyway, that was, Gilbert was instrumental in helping us get here. And to all the families that came and supported this morning and at the hearing, I appreciate all your support, your help. And I know we had a lot of phone calls where I explained to you that things didn't look good. I know that was tough. It was tough for you after waiting 72 years to get to this point. It was tough for me having to be the one to explain that to you because we were in a position where we had no new evidence and there was nothing that we could legally do. But I'm glad we got to where we are because today we sought justice on behalf of Charles Greenlee, Walter Irvin, Ernest Thomas, and Sam Shepard. So that was our goal once we realized we had this new evidence. Follow the evidence, see where it led us, and it led us to this moment now. As I said, for the family, this journey started 72 years ago. For me, while I had known about this case for many years, having been in the Lake County office as a prosecutor, questions would come up, people would regularly call, all kinds of inquiries about the case. Do we have a file? Those kinds of things. And it was so regular that I became somewhat familiar with the case. But for 72 years, the family's been living this and traveling this journey, waiting for today. For me, like I said, it's just July, and it's exhausting having to be in it just for 4 months. I can't imagine how they dealt with it for all those years. When I asked Investigator Riddick to check for that evidence and make sure it was actually missing or gone like we were under the impression, I really didn't have any expectation that he's smiling over there, that he'd find it. But when he called and said, we've got it, then I realized we were onto something meaningful that could give us a legal reason to get where we are today. Because I wanted there to be a legal reason to get here. I didn't want to do it because even though it's, of course, the right thing to do, I didn't want to have to bend rules to get here. So once we found that evidence and it revealed what it revealed, that resulted in the motion that you saw today. So you are not here to hear from me. I think it's best that you hear from the families because their journey has been much more arduous. So with that, I would start by introducing Carol Greenlee, the daughter of Charles Greenlee. Carol, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Attorney. Thank you. And I was told a long time ago, and I'm going to try to hold this together, that God will put people in your space at good times, at the times when you need it. Not when you want it, but when you need it. And today, this is the day that God has made in more ways than one. He has put people in my space that I didn't even have a clue that was on this earth. Inspector Reddick, Gilbert King, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Attorney Gladsen, I'm so thankful for you. This man had the courage to do what so many others didn't have, don't have, and Lord have mercy, I hope someday we all will have the courage to do the right thing, the courage to go beyond what is just right in your face, but to dig deep for those things that you cannot see. You remind me of when my father told my mother, don't bring her back anymore, it's too hard. I was 3 years old. It was in the prison in Starks, Florida. I felt rejected. I felt that I had done something wrong, but I was just a little kid playing in the courtyard in the prison. And all my life, I felt that nobody cared, that I was worth nothing. But I will not let Florida write my story. Come on, Carol. I will not let Florida decide who I was going to be and what I was going to be. I will not let injustice define me. I will not go to prison. I will not be violent. I will not hate, but I will love and embrace all of those who did not know at the time that my father was a caring and loving, compassionate person that did not rape anybody. I stand here today and say thank you. Thank you for the courage to do the right thing. Thank you for the knowledge of digging deep and beyond what is right in front of you. Thanks, Mr. Reddick, for digging deep. And thanks, Gilbert King, for the words on paper that will never go away, that will always be there. And thank my family, my extended family, the Irvins, the Shepherd, the Thomas. They're all my family. We got a bond that will never break. And Senator Thompson, you'll always be a senator for me. Representative Morse, you will always be my representative. And Lord knows, Chris Hand, these are people that I didn't know years ago, but now are my family and in my life, and I want to thank you. These are people with courage to do the right thing, to stand up for what's right, and will not take no for an answer. We need that for everybody. We need that. We need you. If you know something that's right, stand up for it. Be persistent. And stand fat-footed on God's promises. Because when you give him something, don't go back and take it away. Let him work his plan. I don't care if it takes 72 years. It might take 80 years. But when God gives you the okay, he did it for me, and he'll do it for you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Next, I would like to introduce Beverly Robinson. She's the cousin of Sam Shepard.
Hello, everyone. I don't ever like following Carol. She is so emotional, as all of us are about this. But I tell you, this is a glory hallelujah day. I'm a staunch missionary Baptist, and when things get heated in the church, the pastor say people don't even know when to shout. I wanted to shout in the courtroom, but I didn't know if I was allowed. And I didn't want the bailiff to take me out. Oh, Lord have mercy. I just want to say that we all know that there have been many accounts written of this story. The two exceptional books by Mr. King and Mr. Corsair. But today, God lifted up a man. And you know the Bible says, just open your mouth and I'll speak through you and for you. And he did that today. He did it. And State Attorney Gladsen wrote the final chapter of your book. He wrote the final chapter of Mr. Corsair's book. It's a phenomenal final chapter. But the last page of the chapter is the one I like the most. It has only 2 words on it. The end. The end. Decades of suffering. And I think State Attorney Gladsen made it clear this morning in my paraphrasing of what happened. Why write laws if they're not for everyone? I think he clearly pointed out that it is a new dawn in the 5th Judicial Circuit of Florida under his leadership. And I hope his prosecutors and the attorneys in the area heard him clearly, because I certainly did. I'm a former resident of this 5th Judicial Circuit. And I can say, just by looking on, it has certainly changed. We watched as he stood on the shoulders of, I always say, Chief Justice Marshall, because he came here and didn't finish what you finished today. We thank you for finishing, as Carol has said, a job that some did not have the courage to finish. And it takes courage on the Civil Rights March. It takes courage. This is not a job, this is not a journey for cowards. And if you're a coward, you better find you some soldiers who can back you up and who are brave. And I too, Carol, had a lot of soldiers, people who supported me. I live in Georgia. But it didn't matter how I journeyed here. I started Friday, car wouldn't crank, got in my daily putt-putt, and it said, I'll do the job. And it brought me here. But if it hadn't, I got a truck too, Mr. King. I would have got in it. But I was going to be here. But I thank you, Officer Investigator Riddick. Thorough he was, and turned up every stone and brought this case together. And of course, you know I thank you. Chris Hand had nothing to do with this family, but he was absolutely wonderful in keeping me informed and giving me the opportunity to pass the information on to my family. I thank you so much, Attorney Hand. Senator Thompson, I'm like you. She will always be Senator Thompson. In 2004, embraced me and said, let's do it. She didn't ask me a question. She simply said, tell me what needs to be done. Went in her pocket, bought books, one of your books for every legislator, for them to read it. And I'm eternally grateful to her. Sam, like the others, yes, let's give her a hand. Sam, like the others, didn't have an opportunity to have a family, but his nieces are here. Our other cousins are here. We're his family. And I will tell you, I lived this story since I was 5 years old, when their grandmother used to come to my mother's home. They were more like sisters than sister-in-laws. But all I will remember them saying is, they killed Charlie's son. Or she would say, they killed my son for no reason. And my inquisitive mind as a child wanted to know, who are the they? And I set on a journey and said, if I ever get old enough, I'm going to find out who's the they. And that's how I got involved in this, the they. And other older people said it's too hurtful to talk about it, and they never would. But we're grateful for everything that has happened. This is a wonderful day for this family. I ask God's speed upon the Padgett family. We're never taught to hate. We're never taught to hate. From this point on, it's between she and our Almighty to decide what she chooses to take to her grave and what she chooses to reckon with. But we don't have anything to do with that. It's between she and whomever your higher being may be. To God be the glory. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Next, I'd like to introduce Eddie Irvin, Walter Irvin's nephew.
Good evening, everybody. And I want to thank the investigator and Mr. King, and I'd like to thank Mr. King and the investigator for FDLE and the state attorney, Mr. Gladsen, and Senator Thompson, Senator Bobby DuBose, and I think there's another senator down there in Fort Lauderdale. I want to say Kevin or something. I went down there, he was down there. But I'd like to thank everybody that had something to do with this there. I didn't want to get up here and speak. I didn't know how emotional I was going to be. But I want to say something first. My dad, Walter Irvin, brother, is back there in the back. I want to recognize him, and that's my father. As children, we grew up, we wasn't sheltered from it. They told us. And always was taught not to get in trouble. I was listening to Beverly, you know, and Carol, how we all came up. I think the Groveland Four made us better people. I can tell you my siblings, two of them became teachers, and the rest of them came up in law enforcement. I had a brother, a cousin in Orient. They all worked for Lake County Sheriff's Office, and a nephew. I refused to because of what had happened. I went to work for the state, and I retired there. But because of what happened in our life, it's made us better people, and I felt like God put me in the right spot at the right time to make sure that people wasn't being mistreated. And as Carol has said, we all a family. The Greenlee family, the Shepherd family, the Thomas family. When I look at everybody, we just family. I love each and every one of y'all. I'm glad to have the support from the families. I'm glad to have the media here to make people aware of this here. And I can feel proud about Lake County. You know, this is my home. This is where I grew up at. And the county commissioner, I see some of them back there in the back. And I met some of them a long time ago. And I'm thanking y'all for what y'all have done for the family. I'm thanking the city of Groveland, mascot, for all y'all support that y'all gave us over the years. We thank you. I love y'all, and God bless you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Gerald Threat, Walter Irvin's another nephew.
Wow, it's been a long time coming. Much has been said already in regards to how long it's been. I want to thank everyone concerned. I want to thank everyone concerned with making this day possible. I'm here as a representative of those that died waiting on this day. I would like to recognize them. They are the reason that I stand before you today. They wouldn't give up the fight. My grandmother, my mother, my aunt, my uncles, and I'm sure the rest of the families have those that have passed on, that left you with this legacy, left you with this task to see it through. And I'm thankful to have this opportunity to stand before you today and say, it is over. But this is just one chapter that's over. Families, we still got work to do. We still got to heal. We speak about how long it's been. I'm 64 years old. I too remember going to the prison, playing in the courtyard. My grandmother asking my uncle, did you do it? No, Mom. No, Mom. So we all have something to take forward, and we all have some healing that is yet to happen. Lake County, the state of Florida, I thank you all for what you've done. Again, not much to say. I'm just thankful. This is Thanksgiving, by the way, or close to it. It's raining outside. Maybe we can wash away a little bit of the pain and, you know, around the Thanksgiving table this Thanksgiving, we can have an entirely different atmosphere without this hanging over our head. For 64 years, this thing has been riding my shoulders. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Aaron Newsom, Ernest Thomas' nephew.
Okay. Well, a day of Thanksgiving, it's well said, because it is. I'm trying to think about my grandmother and my mom and my dad, and how overjoyed they would be. I look at the rain that came in as everything started, and I'm wondering if it was rain, if it was the tears that were coming from heaven. Of overjoyed, this is just something that was unbelievable. When I first heard about this, I came in late. I really didn't know anything because my parents and my grandmother never talked about it. They would say little things to me and to my brother and my sister, and we didn't understand. Living in New York, everybody was together. We didn't even think about white and black. But my grandmother would always give me little hints, and I would think, what's wrong with you? Why are you talking this way? Now I know. Now I know. I thank God for my grandmother, for my grandfather, for my mom and my dad. They gave me a lot of knowledge that I didn't even realize I was getting at the time, but they did it. I want to thank God first for this day and this opportunity. And I was always taught to make sure you thank the people that are responsible to help get things done. Gary Corsier is not here. I want to thank him. I want to thank this young man right here. Your books told a story. They opened a lot of eyes. Courage was mentioned earlier. Young man, a lot of courage. said I wasn't going to do that. Sometimes what comes up just comes out. We are blessed. I hope that this is a start. Because there's a lot of people that didn't get this opportunity. A lot of families did not get this opportunity. Maybe they will. Maybe this is the start of something good. I hope so. This country needs to come together. We need courage. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Gilbert King.
Thank you. You know, we're standing in this building today, which has a significant importance, because upstairs there was a courtroom that 72 years ago, the abomination of justice that took place in this building was so severe that the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the verdicts in this case, threw it right out. We're here in this building because there was supposed to be a retrial, and Sheriff Willis McCall transported two of the defendants, Samuel Shepard and Walter Irvin, back to this building for what was supposed to be a retrial, except they never made it. Sheriff Willis McCall shot them, killing Sam Shepard on the side of a road not too far from here, and critically injuring Walter Irvin. Thought about this. If Walter Irvin was to die on the side of that road, just a few miles from here, we never would have heard his story, and we probably never would have heard this entire case. It would have died in the darkness. But Walter Irvin was a fighter, and he was fighting for everybody, and he hung on enough to tell his story that inspired an FBI investigation and a lawyer from New York named Thurgood Marshall, who came down and began to represent the Groveland Four. So many people involved in this effort. You've heard of that spoken about today. Everybody just sort of landed on the backs of the families who had this unshakable belief that their relatives deserved to have their innocence restored. But I do want to talk about one of those people. We've heard him mentioned here today. State Attorney Bill Gladsen did a complete investigation. He could have easily kicked this case down the road and let somebody else deal with it, but that's not what he did. Even when it got frustrating and he felt that there was no path towards this day, he dug in harder. And the result is he wrote one of the most powerful motions I've ever read. And as somebody who combs through civil rights documents, that deserves to be acknowledged. It's a brilliant piece of writing and a brilliant motion. And you can tell the way it was written, the language was unequivocal, and the language was necessary, because State Attorney Gladsen understands that the credibility and the integrity of the entire criminal justice system depends on accountability, and it depends on recognizing injustices from the past and moving forward on them, as was done today. Speaking about this bridge to the past, I just have to mention this because Thurgood Marshall was really the first line of defense down here when this case began. He summoned his lawyers and built up a defense. And his entire life was about equal justice under law and the pursuit of this and fighting. It was dangerous for him to come down and take on cases like this. He was irreplaceable to the civil rights movement. And yet his colleagues warned him, don't go, we can't afford to lose you. You know, we have these cases, these landmark civil rights cases in the pipeline. You're irreplaceable to this movement. And Marshall said, these cases matter. These cases save lives. And I just want to take this opportunity to introduce to you a friend of mine, Thurgood Marshall Jr., who's come down from Washington, D.C. to be here with the families. And I have a question for him. Come up here, sir. I just have a question for Mr. Marshall. What would something like this mean to your father today, who spent his whole life working for equal justice under law?
Thank you, Gilbert, and good morning, everyone, on this glorious, glorious day. As those of you who read Gilbert's book know, the stories, my father was a storyteller, and a hallmark of those stories was his heroes. That was his clients. And so for me to be in the presence of the Greenlee, Irvin, Shepard, and Thomas families, I am in the presence of his heroes. And so that is very moving to me, and to be be able to be a part of this historic day in this moment is very important. But as Gilbert and others have mentioned this morning, there are so many people, countless people that we need to remember who suffered similar injustice and similar fates, whose names and faces have been lost to history. And so I think Gilbert would agree that perhaps more than any other case my father worked on, this one haunted him for many, many years. But he believed that our better days were ahead, and he may not have envisioned the leadership and the heroism of people like Mr. DuBose and Ms. Thompson, and certainly the hard work and dedication of these two gentlemen and their teams. But I just wanted to take a moment. Gilbert asked me a question, and I'm going to use it to just pay tribute to these two great individuals, Mr. Gladsen and Mr. King, who are true American heroes, crusaders for equality and crusaders for justice. And it is an honor for me to be able to be in the presence of these heroes and these heroes.
So with that, I would open the floor to questions. We've got a few minutes.
Attorney Gladsen, a question for you with respect to Ritter. You talked about the critical need to find that additional evidence that was lost for all these years. Could I ask maybe Inspector Ritter to describe how that information was found, where it was found, and why it was lost for so long?
Sure, and I can also answer to some extent that question. Come on up, Keith. We learned that the evidence was in Marion County until 1999. So the first trial was here, the second trial was in Marion County, and I suspect, and we had talked about this, that people over the years had looked for the evidence in Lake County, but it had been in Marion County until 1999, when it got transferred back to Lake County. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Just that, 72 years of paperwork, and it's not like this case was in a computer somewhere. So we were, I'd say, fortunate enough to contact the clerk's office here, the lady in charge of the evidence, Terry Schaefer, and she says, I'm pretty sure I've got that. And from there, it was all uphill.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it was found here in Lake County.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Yes, sir. So if it happened here, the prosecutors that you see here today, they live in this county, they work in this county, they're here every day. We are in the community. We have a very strong presence. We're easy to reach. They can certainly call our office. This case was, the fact that the evidence still existed made it somewhat unique. I don't know that you're going to find that very often, particularly with this set of circumstances that got us here. But certainly if they have questions, they can call our office. Anybody? Any other questions? All right, seeing no hands. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. We have a case integrity review unit that looks at allegations of misconduct that come to our office for review. We've had it for probably 6 years.